Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. I am your host. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to view this, to listen to this podcast. We're really grateful for all of the support that we're getting. And as this thing starts to grow, we just ask that you'd subscribe if you haven't yet and share it if you haven't yet. We want to move the needle when it comes to mental health, particularly men's mental health, because there's a lot of needle to move. And, as much as I see the good things that's happening with the company and breakthroughs, and we're getting messages from people, and it's really, really gratifying to see that. It seems like every day we're seeing on the news other reports as well. Unfortunately, the statistics they're not getting better. And that's not going to happen until we and a whole bunch of groups like us all band together and start creating the awareness that needs to be created, so we can then create the actions and the habits, the decisions, all of the things that need to be made so we can drastically reduce this silent mental health crisis that's going on. Man, I've come in here and I'm coming in all guns a-blazing right now. Hey, listen, the He Changed It community is awesome. We are all helping each other. Some of us are down in the dirt. Some of us are just wanting to learn how to fly, and we can do that for each other. I'm excited about today's guest because it's one of those guests that has happened organically as he has made its way through the universe. Part of the social media team of He Changed It stumbled across this account that's called Move for Mental Health. And it's a very clever title when we hear the founder talk about what it is and what it's all about. It's super, super cool. And some of the content that was there, we've shared it on our platforms, and that has made it so our team and the founder of Move for Mental Health have gotten together. He's a guy named Andrew Stephenson that lives in the United Kingdom. He is a fitness guy, but has gotten there through a mental health journey that he is willing to talk about here. Andrew, thank you for taking time. It's late over where you are right now, so thank you for taking part of your late night evening to be part of heCast.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you, man. And I just, how old are you?
I'm 25.
25. Did you always know that fitness was where you wanted to be in life?
No. So as a child, I wanted to be a vet.
You want to be a vet? You love animals?
Yeah, and so most of my childhood was spent sort of reading about animals, watching animal documentaries, and I actually went to university and did a zoology degree.
So you have a zoology degree.
Yes.
So this is a podcast. I'm just going to let all our listeners and viewers know that this is a podcast where Andrew's going to tell his story. And I'm grateful for the story and especially where he's at right now. And, I don't know where you pick it up. When you do tell your story, do you pick it up in university? Do you pick it up after? Move for Mental Health is obviously, a key component to it. How does this whole thing work, man? Where did this come from?
Yeah, so it was around about my second year of university, and I was actually at my brother's wedding doing my best man speech. And right in the middle of the speech, I had probably to date the worst anxiety attack that I've ever had. Right in the middle of the speech? Yeah, like right in the center of the speech. So, oh my God. The speech sort of came to an end. I have two brothers, and my brother sort of took over. And that was sort of the day that it dawned on me that I had anxiety. Like I sort of had an inkling, but that's when it really hit, like this is an actual issue.
So we're talking about an anxiety disorder that, because in times in life, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, because maybe you've always had an extraordinary amount of anxiety. But I think about if I, in school, if it was a big test, or if I was going to go talk to a girl that I liked, or things like that. Anxiety is a normal thing. It sounds like this is something that was completely abnormal for you at the time.
Yeah, so I was quite used to doing a lot of presentations, public speaking through university and college and everything. So it wasn't like a big deal to me to have to speak to a room of people. Mm-hmm. So having this like attack really it was very out of the blue, really.
How did you guys play off of it? Like you were getting emotional and so your brother took over there, or was it pretty obvious? Oh shit, Andrew's in trouble here.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious. Like I was trembling, I started to cry, and just think it was like a really extreme reaction to what you might expect someone to have doing a
Did
speech.
that scare you when it was happening?
I wouldn't say it scared me. It was quite shocking, really. It was like quite existential. I didn't really feel like it was happening at the time.
Yeah.
It was kind of like after that when everyone kept buying me drinks and saying like, oh, you'll be okay. And then I just got really, really, really drunk.
As we know, when we get really drunk, as we know, the next day shows up, and realities sometimes also come with that next day. Some we remember, some we don't. As the realities of the situation started to hit you, what happened next? Was it a downward spiral, or did you automatically know that you needed to move into solution mode?
It probably took me a couple of weeks to really accept what had happened and like accept that I maybe need some help. I went back to university and I started to quite struggle at university. It was always weighing me down on the back of my mind. And then it soon led to agoraphobia.
Really?
Yeah, and I started to struggle to actually go to university. And there was days when I'd be emailing my tutors and just saying, well, I'm not coming in today, coming up with various reasons and excuses. And it just escalated. So if you don't expose yourself to triggers and you always feed your anxiety what it wants, you create a feedback loop. And I created this negative feedback loop where it was like too much anxiety to go out, so I didn't go out. And then it just sort of fed back that I was doing the right thing.
Right.
And it kind of snowballs into something much worse.
Now, I'm curious about, because I mean, we got guys of all sorts of different places and in their lives listening to this, and I wanna maybe talk about that for a moment. You said a couple things there that have struck out to me. The first one is the excuses. So, and you talk about agoraphobic and things. So, agoraphobic, if I have it correct, being out in big spaces, crowds, things like that, it fuels anxiety. And
yeah,
to
so
whatever degree it might be.
It's anxiety that is fueled by leaving your safe zones. So it's not necessarily just the fear of leaving your own home.
Right.
Some people can have agoraphobia, but they still go to work because that's also a safe zone.
Right.
But it's going to anywhere other than those safe zones.
Okay, I feel you. And you talk about excuses. So did you know that this is what was going on, or did you just know I can't do school today, tell them I'm sick, kind of a thing? Like were you coherent?
Yeah, I knew that there was an issue. I had heard of agoraphobia before and I had a strong inkling that that's what it was. But I think it was mostly denial. I didn't want to accept it myself, so I just threw excuses out there.
Okay.
And then when lecturers and tutors would reply to me and say, that's fine, that was almost like gratification to me of like, this is okay. Like, I don't have to go. Okay.
And you're kind of answering my question for me right now, but I said two things. The second thing is this negative feedback loop. So because you made that decision to kind of quote unquote succumb to, maybe is a better word, to succumb to the anxiety, to kind of procrastinate, do whatever. And because you had that permission somewhat to do that, is that the gateway to this feedback loop you were talking about?
Yeah, so if you start to get reinforcement that you're doing the correct thing. So I didn't want to go out, so I didn't go out. And then other people, through my excuses, were telling me that's fine. It created this negative loop of just, if I don't want to go out, I won't go out, and that's okay. But it doesn't really solve.
What are we talking about in that period there, Andrew? How long of a period did those excuses, did that way of life kind of, how long was that happening? Was that months?
I'd say around about a year.
Wow.
Yeah, I missed a lot of university.
Okay. Okay, so what happened then? So this year goes by of the same behaviors. What happened then?
So it started to snowball into other parts of my life. So then it was, I wouldn't go to the shop. I wouldn't go and visit my family. I wouldn't go anywhere. It reached the point where it was just, I'm not even going to go and walk around the block. Like, it's just not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just sort of knew exercise helps anxiety. So I started to do exercise in my home, like HIIT workouts off YouTube and things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I eventually reached a point where I thought, I really need to go outside because I'm just constantly living this Groundhog Day type life here.
Right.
So I joined a local gym, and that sort of added on to my safe zone.
Right.
So although I still had agoraphobia, I now went outside and went to the gym, and it kind of became part of this zone where everything was okay. And then exercise started to help me break out of that. So the zone grew. I started to go to the shop more. I started to run and like explore my neighborhood and visit friends again. And I sort of broke out of this loop.
So I just want to, for pacing of the story, that sort of thing, that wasn't rock bottom though.
No.
Rock bottom is coming a little bit later, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but at the time, it must have felt really good to find an outlet that was a positive outlet that helped you in that current situation. It must have felt good. Like, many of us know the benefits of fitness, and for you to find that it sounds like that was a short-term solution for you at that point.
Yeah, it was kind of like a good excuse to leave my house.
Okay. Is that how you justified it at first?
Yeah, it was kind of like, let's eradicate all these terrible excuses that I'm coming up with and have something real.
And like at the time, you're what, 19, 20, 21 years old kind of a thing?
Yeah, about 19.
Man, that's some big boy thinking for a 19-year-old. That's some good thinking. So what happened next?
So I continued to go to the gym, and then it got to the point where I was back in university. Things were going pretty well. Mm-hmm. And the gym that I was going to, I walked in one day and I asked the manager there, do you know any jobs that are going in town? Because I thought, I'll get a job and then that's something else. And he basically just said, yeah, here. Mm-hmm. And that's where my journey as a personal trainer started. So I got a job there. I was only working the reception at first.
Right.
And then they started to sort of pick up on the fact that I knew a thing or two about fitness. Like, I played rugby as a child, and then through a lot of my teenage years, and I'd been in the gym a few times. And as experience grew, they offered me my training to become a personal trainer. And then from there, that's where Move for Mental Health sort of developed. Okay,
so at this point, have you left university?
No, I'm still there.
So you're still at university. So you're going through potentially for the vet thing, but you're seeing it through. And then at the same time on the side, you're actually becoming a personal trainer while you're in school.
Yeah, it was like, I just saw it as an opportunity to make a little bit of money on the side.
Very cool. Very cool. And needless to say, by this point, you're in love with fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Keep her going.
So it kind of like helped me. It not only helped my anxiety and me to break out of agoraphobia, but growing up, I was always told, like, especially playing rugby, like I was always constantly being told, oh, you're too small, you're so small. A lot of weeks they wouldn't pick me because the coaches would say, we're going to go with the bigger lads this week. You're just so small, you're always going to get injured. And
right.
As I started to see muscle growth and changes in my body, like my sort of self-esteem started to grow as well. So that only like added to the positivity of it all. And then through my own transformation physically, that's when I started to gain like a good client base and I started to build a pretty good business. And then that's kind of where zoology and the whole animal side of my life took a massive backseat because I thought I'm really actually helping people here and I'm doing something proactive that I enjoy.
And that makes sense. I mean, I've said this in other podcasts before. When the He Changed It team went out there to kind of figure out during their discovery phase, trying to figure out the problem and how we might be able to address the problem, they looked into pain points for men and their mental health and what some of these pain points are that lead to some of these mental health things. And body image was number one in some of the categories that they looked into. And, you wouldn't necessarily many people are surprised by that because men don't normally, we're not the first. I'm not the first person to say in a room, if I'm putting on a jacket, when I've got my winter weight on, that, oh, this fucker makes me feel a little bit fat right now. Men don't normally come out with that kind of stuff. But when I tell you that one of the major pain points for men when it comes to mental health is body image, you can relate to that. You can, that doesn't surprise you.
No, that doesn't surprise me, really. I know that it's not something that's publicly spoken about very much.
Yeah.
I think body image can obviously play a big role in a lot of people's self-esteem, but there's a point at which you take it too far.
Yeah.
And then it sort of starts to destroy your self-esteem, which I've experienced myself.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about that because now, okay, so the zoology, all the university stuff's taking a back seat. You're really in this now, and it's becoming, a business. It's becoming a way of life, that kind of a thing. What happened next, Andrew?
Okay, so basically, I started to rest all of my worth as a personal trainer on the way that I looked.
Okay.
And obviously you can be in shape, you can be fit, you can be healthy. But I took it to the next extreme. I started to try and get my body fat as low as physically possible. Got myself to the sort of cover model type shape.
Yep.
And at that point, my relationship with food really started to die. I was on this, it was like the whole clean eating type thing, cutting out big parts of my diet because it just wasn't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I just really took it to this place where in my head, it was like, I have to exercise if I want to eat. And I have to exercise to look this certain way. And I have to exercise just to sort of get by in life.
Right.
And I rested all of my self-worth on that. And it reached a point where if I didn't exercise, I didn't eat. And I convinced myself that if I didn't look this specific way, no one would hire me as a personal trainer. My worth as a man almost would drop. And it just sort of built into quite an unhealthy mindset.
How long of a time period are we talking about? So the thing grows and you're growing and you're changing. Your body image is in a healthy place, a good place. You're getting some momentum, and then it wasn't. So what was the time frame between where things were good and you were building something to where they were bad? Was it just a one-day thing? Was it a gradual thing?
So I'd say I got into good shape, mentally and physically healthy over the space of around about a year to 18 months.
Right.
But then it became an obsession to me.
Right.
It was no longer just a habit of exercising to feel good, to have good health. It became an obsession of exercising to look this specific way. My mental health and everything, I wasn't bothered about that anymore. It was just, I need to look this way and I have to exercise and undereat to be like that. Right. And that I'd say that happened over a couple of months.
It doesn't take long at all.
No, not at all. So your body fat percentage, it started to drop and drop and drop. And then I reached a point where I was very, very lean. You sort of almost start to lose health parameters. So my mental health started to go. I wasn't eating enough, so that really affects your mental health.
Yeah.
I had very, very little energy off the back of that.
Right.
which of course affects your mental health.
Sure.
And over a couple of months, it was like it becomes really difficult eventually, where it's like my body fat is so low, it's hard to get it any lower.
Wow.
And the obsession of it all takes over, and it's like I need 1 more percent off, I need 1 more inch off here, I need this muscle to just look a little bit better, and it becomes very, very obsessive, and you become very self-critical. My self-esteem was terrible.
You probably had people saying that you looked good all the time too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, you get like, everyone's always saying, "Oh, you're in such amazing shape." You know, can you hire? I'll hire you. Can you train me? Like, I really want to look like you. But in my head, it was just, I've got so much to improve that you can't see. Like, it was all just in my head of like, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm a personal trainer. Like, it was quite big-headed, really. Like, my approach to it all, I was just thinking, they don't know anything about fitness. I've got improvements to make that they don't understand.
You talked about with the agoraphobia, you talk about this feedback loop, this negative feedback loop, this echo chamber. It sounds like you had that when it came to this as well.
Yes, that's definitely correct. So as you start to look this certain way and everyone's telling you look really great, and then you lose a little bit more fat, you change your shape a little bit more, they're still telling you look great. All you can think is like, this is going well, like this is the correct way to do this.
But at the same time, you're feeding this poisonous mentality that's in your head.
Yeah, you're feeding your ego big time.
Okay.
And it just, the way that the fitness industry is, the leaner you are, the more muscular you look, the healthier people deem you to be. So there never really comes a point where anybody says to you, like, maybe this is too far.
Right.
It's just, nobody says that. It's just kind of, oh, he just looks better and better and better. Like, he must be super fit.
And you yourself aren't in a position where you could ever be satisfied. And because of that, the end result is not going to be good if it continues down that path, and continued on that path you did.
Yes. So It just reaches a point where you're just never happy. I thought my self-esteem, my self-worth would eventually improve, and it just didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And you start scrolling on social media, you see these other fitness trainers, these other guys who stepping on stage who are ridiculously lean. But it doesn't occur to you that they're only like that for a week or so.
Right.
They get down to that condition, step on stage, compete or whatever they want to do. And then they just pile like body fat back on for like the off season. And
yep.
You don't see that on social media. So your brain just tells you this is how they look all the time.
Sure. We had a bodybuilder on not too long ago, and he, we talked a little bit about that. I had no idea when people compete for these things, there's like a few hour window. There's a few hour window, and if you hit it right, you hit it perfectly, where you lean out perfectly for that moment. And if you miss it, you're too swollen for that moment and you're not going to win. Like, it's fascinating to me. The science behind it and the strategy behind it, like the real strategy in bodybuilding. It's not just getting your muscles there, but it's also being there for the competition and the prep for that. Average person has no fucking idea that that's the case, though.
Yeah, I usually refer to it as similar to like a dancing competition. So someone with an untrained eye will go along and they'll think they're all doing the same dance. I don't understand how this is judged.
Right.
But it's such subtle little things that they're judged on. And to an untrained eye, you just wouldn't know.
Yeah. And I think that's how we think, and you're right. I see a guy walking down the street who's got a six pack and I'm like, oh, well, fuck. Okay. He's going to go get all the women. All right. And I just think that he looks like that all the time, when that's not necessarily the truth at all. And there's always more to the story. And I want to continue down with your story here and keep going. because eventually you can't continually live like this. It's not reasonable to think that you could continue living like this, and you didn't. So what happened to you to bring you to where you are today? What happened next?
Okay, so next, I carried on down this path of like extreme dieting, extreme exercise. I was overtraining, no energy, just tired all the time.
Yep.
And it reaches the point where it's unmanageable. You can't sustain this any longer. And because some days you're waking up and you can't train, and then your mind's telling you, well, you can't eat then. And it starts to really break down. Life starts to become really difficult because you want to do these things, but you can't.
Yep.
And then it sort of hits this cycle of training, eating, doing everything you need to do, completely burning yourself out, and then just feeling terrible for a few days. And I developed, well, I already had anxiety, but it just got worse. And I started to feel like my self-worth was just not there. My self-esteem was really low. I felt like a complete failure. Like, this is just, I'm obviously just not good enough. I'm not cut out for this. I'm terrible at my job. And it really started to get to me a lot. And then I ended up having to take some time off work because I went to see my doctor about it.
Mm-hmm.
I basically just wanted him to verify that I was doing the right thing. And I went to him more to tell him that I have no energy and I'm struggling to sleep and things.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to him to tell him about my mental health.
Right.
And he just wrote me off work and just said, like, categorically, like, you're depressed.
So he saw it right away.
Yeah, he sort of spoke to him for about half an hour or so, and he basically just said, you definitely are depressed. And he put me on some medication and wrote me off work for a month. And it was during my month off work that I sort of started to spiral. It took me quite a while to even take any of the medication because I felt almost shamed to.
Mm-hmm.
I was still convinced that that wasn't the problem and I don't need this medication.
Right.
And I think because it was a mental health thing and you can't necessarily see it, I thought, why would I want to take medication for something that I can't see? After all, seeing is believing and everything.
Right.
And it was just before I even started to take the medication that I spiraled into the point of like suicidal thoughts. And I just started to think, what's actually the point anymore? I can't reach my goal. I'm a failure at my job. And I just, what's the point in continuing with this any longer? And it just led me down a path to actually attempting to take my own life. And that's probably the toughest thing to come back from. Mm-hmm. So it was quite a brutal way to go about it. I actually went to a local reservoir and literally just walked into the water, and my intention was to just like drown. And I walked into the water and it was like head went under. And in a really sort of strange way, I'd say anxiety saved my life because I was too anxious to go through with it.
Wow.
And in that second, I just sort of got back out of the water. But then I had no anxiety once I'd come out of the water. It was just for sort of a split second in the water. I couldn't do it.
Right.
And then I completely kept quiet about it for quite a long time. I didn't tell anybody. I just went home, put my clothes in the wash, and just didn't breathe a word to a soul for quite some time. It was probably a few weeks before I told my partner. And like, she lives with me. We've lived together for quite some time. We've been together for 8 years.
Oh my gosh.
And she had absolutely no idea, not even an inkling. She never approached me and asked me. Like, I just hid it so well.
And I'm going to stop you there, and I'm going to ask you just a couple little questions. One of the questions I was going to ask you is if you had told anybody as this descent was happening, did anybody know? So nobody knew.
No.
Okay.
People knew that I was off work for whatever reason.
Sure.
I think
but you were cooking, like that pot was cooking for quite a while before you got off work. Like you were already descending towards that spiral. Nobody knew.
No. Well, I think people knew that I was struggling with my self-worth.
Okay.
Because I would talk quite a lot about how, I just can't reach this goal. I can't get this last little bit of fat off. I can't build this muscle as much as I want to. And I think people sort of started to have an inkling that I was maybe getting too obsessive about things.
Right.
But I think it's quite common, especially in the fitness industry, that people will say like, my chest isn't as big as I want it to be yet. I've still got this last little bit to go.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone really picked up on that it was like abnormal, because in the fitness industry, that's quite normal.
I gotcha. And in fact, they might be even, I hate to use the word inspired, by going, oh, wow, look at Andrew. He looks the way he does, but he's still going after it. Good for him almost.
Yeah, it was like no one really ever said, why don't you stop now? It was just like, you just get into these new levels every time, and it's amazing to see. And it was like that feedback loop again of just, this is the right thing to do.
So let me ask you this. If do you think along the way, if you would have come to a place of recognition as to where you were, even, nonchalantly, if you would have told somebody about it, do you think that would have helped earlier?
Yeah. I don't think I would have reached rock bottom. I don't think I'd have reached that point where I tried to end my own life.
One of the things that, and it's a hard truth that we hear, I love doing this podcast and talking about these things that he is wanting to do, because it's so idealistic. But sometimes when you hear some of the stats and some of the horrible truths that are out there, one horrible truth that I heard from the team was talking about it. They was talking about how many times men don't want to be a bother, to the point where we will hide things about how we're feeling, about where we're at. And to the point where we don't want to be a bother, to the point where, you know what, instead of talk to somebody about it, I might just make that permanent solution. And when I hear your story, those anecdotes become sobering to me, because, I think you could probably relate to that.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually mention a lot of that type of thing in the note that I wrote before I tried to end my life. So
you wrote it. You did write a note. You actually.
Yeah,
okay.
I spoke a lot about how it was quite a strange note, really. It wasn't very emotional at all. People have read it and told me like it's quite robotic, almost cold in a sense. Mm-hmm. So I talk a lot about how I didn't want to talk to people at the fear of them only helping for social gratification.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of it is me. It's quite a long note, but it's just me talking about how, why should I seek help when the only reason these people want to help is to look good themselves? And I just had this really warped view of seeking help. It was like, people share these things on Facebook. They're always preaching about, I'm always there to talk if you need it. But I was just convinced that they're just saying that to sort of be a part of this conversation online, because that's what everybody says. Right. I was convinced that no one really means it.
That's fascinating. And clearly, for our listeners or our viewers, again, you're the first to say your mind was not right. The person that wrote that note was a person whose mind wasn't right.
No, definitely not. Yeah. I mean, when I read it now, I struggle to accept that it was me that wrote it. I feel like I'm reading someone else's writing.
What a thing to say. And I think that for men who listen to this, that maybe they know somebody who's in that place right now. I mean, the hope that comes with that statement, like you don't even recognize that person anymore. That was a temporary person. And I don't want to be so glib and to make light of it, to say, oh yeah, give that person a couple avocados and some proper therapy and they can completely change. But that kind of is how simple it can be sometimes. Like, and I think sometimes we make permanent decisions to situations that don't have to be treated permanently. And you're a walking testimony of that.
Yeah, I have to say that the most sobering thing for me is the realization of how easy it is to get help.
Oh, you gave me goosebumps. You just gave me goosebumps by saying that. That sobering realization is how easy it is to get help. Yeah,
it's so easy. It's like...
And what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean guys can do that for each other? Are you talking professional help, that there's lots of professional help available? Like, what do you mean by that statement?
It's coming to the realization of how many different avenues there are to go down to seek help. So you've obviously got friends, family, therapy. I don't know if you have it over there, but in the UK, there's an organization called Samaritans.
Okay.
That's a completely free service. So you can either phone them or text them. I think you can text them anyway, but you can definitely phone them and you get through to an anonymous stranger. It's completely free and they will just talk to you, whatever you want to talk about. It's a service that I've used myself multiple times. I've used it this year. And I find it quite difficult to talk to friends and family, because I don't want that emotional attachment. I find when I'm talking about quite sobering topics, I don't want someone there getting really emotional alongside me.
Right.
So calling the Samaritans helpline for me is like, I get through to this neutral party. It's just someone with no emotional attachment to me or my story. And they'll just talk to me on such a level playing field. It really helps to like bring my emotions down.
Right.
And it's just so easy to access. Like the numbers are right there online. Just call it, someone will answer. And there's services like that all over the world.
Yes. Yes, there are. It's funny. Obviously, I think if people are listening to what Andrew's talking about there, and they've been part of the He Changed It ecosystem for a little while, that's obviously something where he is building towards. Candy was telling me the other day about some of the audio rooms and some of the things that they're features that are going to be added in there. And that anonymity is really important. So, because it doesn't attach, anonymity helps there not be judgment attached to it. Because if somebody is a politician or if they're a dog catcher, it doesn't matter. That person's in a place of pain, and being able to be anonymous about it, like you said, it levels the playing field. And obviously, we can see why there's this kinship. One of the throughout the discovery, there was a documentarian that the He Changed It team has dealt with, and and that documentarian has talked to the top Canadian military official when it comes to they're the person that's in charge of the mental health medical side of things for the entire armed forces. And one of the things that they talked about is the PTSD and the suicides and some of the things that are happening. And one of the things that person said is that, and every single man that takes their own life, they got a phone in their pocket. And it's so easy to reach out to these services, but at the same time, when you're in that place, it might as well be a 5,000 kilometer journey to those places. Like you don't see that how easy it is. And to hear you talk about how easy it is and how much stuff there is, I really appreciate you noting that, because some people who might be in this fog might not know how easy it is to actually get help.
Yeah, definitely. I know when I was in there, I didn't realize just how easy it is. That's why I say it was so sobering to realize. And you sort of think, this was here this whole time. I never had to go through any of this, really.
Yeah.
And it's strange because it's kind of like, what am I trying to say here? Literally anybody, if you say to them what you're going through, no matter who you tell, you could tell it to a complete stranger in a shop.
Yeah.
The likelihood is they will do something to try and help.
Yes.
And I know that me personally, if someone approached me, whether I knew them or not, and told me they're really struggling with their mental health and they're considering maybe suicide, maybe running away, maybe anything.
Yeah.
I know that I personally would drop everything and try to help them. And it's just coming to the realization of that, like, everybody around you, whether you know them or not, will probably try to help you.
I appreciate the optimism in that statement. And I agree as well. You know, I think that everybody has somebody that would help them if they just spoke up a little bit. And like you said, that includes complete strangers.
Yeah.
Now, you went through this journey alone, and that's the part that boggles my mind, is that you went through the journey alone. You had this event and at the reservoir, and a few weeks later you come clean, and you get it out there. Now, what was that feeling like? Was that instantaneous, weight lifted off your shoulder? Was it filled with shame that disappeared? Did you know that it was your partner you were going to tell first? How did you kind of come to that place?
So over the few weeks after it happened, I sort of got over the shame of it all. I sort of, once I'd seen how there's all this help out there, I actually started to research sort of why it happened, like what's brought me to this point, and started to accept that there is this big issue. I need to take the medication that the doctor had actually given me.
Yeah.
And I got past the shame of it. I just thought, like, I'm ill. Like, there is no shame in this. Like, I'm ill. It wasn't, I want to say it wasn't voluntary, because, like I say, reading my note, I don't feel like it was me.
Yep.
And then I just had this overwhelming feeling of, like, I need people to know what happened.
Right.
It's like I could accept that it happened, but it was a lot on my mind to know that I'm the only person that knows it happened.
Right.
And I felt like I owed it to my partner to tell her that this is what's happened. And so I told her, and
how'd that convo go?
It was a difficult one, probably one of the hardest I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was strange. I told her, and then over time, I became actually really comfortable just telling people about it. People at work, clients, a lot of them really resonated with it and said that they didn't realize that was something that was going on in my life. They would never have even guessed. They just thought I was off work for other reasons, maybe some other health condition.
Did anybody else open up to problems that they have of their own?
Yeah, quite a lot. So this is sort of where Move for Mental Health took its sort of big leaps. So then I started to get quite a broad client base of people who also have anxiety, suffer with depression, and really struggle with their mental health. So I went from being like a sort of weight loss coach and typical PT.
Yep.
To having a client base that was mostly mental health like based, just helping people get through things more than anything else.
Wow. If you would have told the freshman going in for a zoology degree that this is the road that his life was going to take, he probably wouldn't have believed it.
Definitely not.
Man, that's incredible. So now at this point, let's just look at the timeline. So at that moment where you're telling people you're feeling comfortable to the point where your vulnerability is more important than anything else, and you're able to talk about it the way that you are, what year is that? Where are we at that point?
I would say, so my actual suicide attempt was 2018.
Okay.
So it was probably the beginning of 2019. The attempt was in the July of 2018. So
Okay.
I'd say around about January to February of 2019.
So Move for Mental Health is essentially close to 2 years old.
Yeah.
Has it changed your life?
Definitely, yeah.
How's it changed your life?
It really helped me to take the obsession of my aesthetics and focus my own fitness journey on my mental health. So not only did it transform the way I started to view fitness and view food and view movement,
right,
but it gave me this vehicle to show other people so that they never go down the path that I went down.
Yep.
And now I have quite a broad client base, really. I've got clients online who are from all over the place, and they had the same sort of view of fitness. Like, they need to be this really, really lean. They need to cut out all these food groups. They've got to look this certain way that's going to give them all this self-worth and really improve their life so much.
Right.
And you can almost see them heading towards that obsessive end of it. But because I've experienced it to such an extreme, I can talk about my story and inspire them to not view it in that way anymore. See it as, this is for your mental health. You don't need to look this certain way to have self-worth. Looking that way isn't realistic. And when you're looking at these people on social media, like, it's just such a tiny snapshot in their fitness journey, their career as a sports person. Like, this isn't real life. So I try to show through my social media, as you've seen, real life. Like, there's no posing, there's no talking of calories and being extremely lean and talking about this sort of warped view on health and fitness.
Yes.
And I really try to just basically prevent people from going down the path I went down.
It's incredible to see that you have a higher calling that has come from, and I think with men, many times that's the case. When he changed it, we talk about how there's a leave something that you know, take something that's your lead mentality that they are looking to build within the app. And you know, here is you who have gone through this horrifically difficult experience. And the first thing you want to do is become vulnerable and tell people about it so they don't go through it themselves. And I think that is men to a T. From if we were trying to teach somebody how to fix a fence because we know how to do it, all the way to, yeah, you know what? I've been in a deep, dark corner too, man. I can help you out. I think that's something that men just like to do, is help each other that way.
Yeah, I think my mentality towards it has got to be like, I don't want to have gone through all this suffering and terrible experiences for nothing.
Oh.
Because in the end, it really was for nothing. Like, it was so avoidable.
Yeah.
But it happened, and why? It sounds kind of odd, but why let it go to waste?
Right.
I'd rather share and prevent other people from experiencing that as well. Yes. When I know how to prevent it, why not share? And I'd rather people took something away from my story than me just keep it to myself and sort of have this closed up shame over it, because there's no shame in using it to help people.
Well, I can tell you that I'm grateful. And we gotta unfortunately move to the end here. I told you it was going to go by fast. But I do want to ask a question or two before we finish up. First off, how's the rest of your mental health? Like, is the agoraphobia still there? How does regular life look for you now? Would you say you're 100%, or do you not look at it in percentages anymore? Good days, bad days. How do you kind of give yourself a report card when it comes to life right now?
I would say that with mental health issues, you don't ever recover. There's never a point where it's gone.
Yep.
There's another podcast that I listen to with a man called Joshua Fletcher. He's a psychotherapist over here.
Okay.
And he defines recovery as you're in a recovery when you can go about your life how you want to go about it, regardless of anxiety or regardless of depression.
Oh man, I like that.
It
so
hasn't
are you in
gone.
Recovery?
Yeah. I definitely go about my life how I want to, regardless of anxiety. I just tell myself it is just anxiety. It can't hurt you. It's your body has a finite amount of adrenaline, so you might have a panic attack, but after a few minutes it will pass. And just do what you want to do, because if you let it control you forever, that's not recovery. That's just submitting to it.
Well, and that's you tried that a couple times, and a couple echo chambers killed that for you. So time to move on to the real solution, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But how many people though are in that place? Like, that's the thing, where they think like mistakenly, but yet at the same time innocently are in a place where they think they're actually moving the needle for themselves when actually really they're not. Like, and I mean, maybe that's just part of the journey, is that sometimes we gotta fail a couple times before we actually succeed.
Yeah, I think we can reach a point where we're almost too compassionate with ourselves. Mm-hmm. Self-compassion is obviously very important, mm-hmm. but it can become, you can be too lenient with yourself. So like with my agoraphobia, it was the thing of, I'll just never go out, right, and I'll never experience this. Agoraphobia is not there if I just don't go out.
Right.
But you have to have a limit. You have to address the problem of never going out is just, that's never going to be good for you. Mm-hmm. Life has to go on. There's things that you're going to want to do, which mean you're going to have to go out. So have compassion, but have it in the sense of, yeah, go out, but maybe just for a few minutes.
Right.
You don't have to go out and go into the city and spend a whole day shopping or anything. Just build something.
Yeah.
Break the negative loop and just start to build something, whether it's in tiny increments or not.
Break the negative loop and start to build something. There's something that's a soundbite if I've ever heard one. If people want to follow you, and by the way, I would endorse, the material that you have coming out. I would definitely endorse that. It's food for thought and then some is what I would say. If people want to follow you, if people want to look at what you're doing, you do online things and whatnot. What's the best way to find you?
The best place to find me is definitely Instagram. So just at Andrew Stephenson PT.
And it's Andrew Stephenson PT, Stephen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I know that he is going to, our social channels will definitely share your social channels, and you're going to do the same for us, that sort of thing. As the UK is just kind of coming online with He Changed It. We're going to do some cool things with the app. I can't wait to interact with you. heCast has its own presence within the app, and we're just building the community now. Right now, all the resources are there, but I can't wait to have you on to do future things with you. Andrew, you're really changing the world around you, and you are a beacon of light for people who are in the darkness. And I think you're a really special light because you have been in the darkness. And I just want to say thank you very much for taking this incredibly difficult journey and not only changing directions, but being willing to have as many people jump on and join you for the rest of the journey as possible. Thank you for doing this. And I imagine you get gratefulness from all over the place, but I just know right now that this upstart company here in Canada that's going to go worldwide is really, really grateful for you. We're really grateful for you coming here and telling us your story.
I'm grateful to be here. Things like this make it so it wasn't a waste.
That is an incredibly flattering and beautiful comment, and I appreciate you saying that very much. We ain't done with Andrew. At some point, we will do other things, but for now, that is another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. If any of these words, if you're watching or listening, if any of these words resonated with you or you think they might resonate with somebody else, please share this with them. We can help each other. And sometimes there are people who, when you look at them, they may not strike you as someone who's in need of help, but there's a lot of people who are in need of help right now. And yeah, we want to do that for each other. So that is another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.